So first issue that I talked about is that uh, obviously that multicollinearity is kind of identically equal to uh, few observations in theory. Number two, which is again one of the problematic consequences, that even if multicollinearity is high, OLS estimators are blue. So that's a huge problem, because in that sense, what you have got is the best, but still there is high multicollinearity. Okay, and this is quite natural. Why? This is because, you see, blue implies that OLS estimators are, at the very basic, they are unbiased. And that's quite natural to expect. Why? Because unbiasedness is a multi-sample property, right? It is dependent on repeated sampling. But multicollinearity is a specific sample issue. And to that extent, unbiasedness doesn't deal with that. Okay. Now, blue will also blue is also telling us that okay, let us write like this. OLS estimators comes with minimum variance. Then what about what we talked about earlier? Minimum variance, so let's write like this, that this minimum variance doesn't mean that variances are themselves small. Okay, so what we are trying to say here, that in absolute value, getting minimum variance means that in the class of unbiased and linear estimate, the variance that you have got is minimum. But that doesn't say that the value of the variance, that will be very low. That's not the fact. That can be huge. But blue guarantees that in the class of these estimates, that huge variance even is the minimum. Okay. So the accuracy and all that we talked about, that doesn't harm, rather that cannot be, that's not that's not against estimators being blue. All right. So try to understand the kind of theoretical problem that we are talking about. Okay. Then number 3 is, which will clarify our problem more, that multicollinearity is a sample regression phenomenon. So the data set with which you are working, that has this problem. It's not, we are not talking about the population. Okay. So in that case, we will just take a very simple example that of how that can happen. So our famous Keynesian consumption function, let's say we are estimating with a model with CI, which is our consumption, equal to beta 1 plus beta 2 into income plus beta 3, which is wealth. With the debate of nepotism going on, it will be quite correct thinking. It's correct to think that income and wealth are imperfectly correlated. And if you look at the world, it is true that they are imperfectly correlated. But look at what we just studied just now. We said that this problem is a sample regression problem. So the sample you are working with, that can have data on income and wealth, they are correlated. But given that, theoretically speaking, we don't have to go beyond OLS, because the estimates of OLS, that is beta 1 hat, beta 2 hat, and beta 3 hat, they are still blue. So that means that in practical sense, if we talk about, we really have a problem, right? A problem which cannot be really tractable in theory, because in theory all the methods, they are based on repeated sampling ideas. But here we are talking about a problem which is of a single sample, the sample based on which we are modeling. Okay, so let's now look at the practical consequences, some of them which we talked about a lot of times. So we'll just make a list of it, the practical consequences. Okay, we talked about them at length earlier also. And then we will try to define some, as we said, some measures or some rule of thumb which will help us to comment on the existence of multicollinearity. Okay. So, practical consequences. Okay. So number one. So now I'll just write them down. Large variances and covariances of estimate. Number two, wider confidence interval, CI, right? And that is due to 1, this problem. Number three, T ratio, which is the same as 2. So T ratio, statistically insignificant. Why I'm writing all this in a separate manner? Because when we'll be talking about diagnostic tests, when we'll be talking about diagnostic test or detecting whether there is multicollinearity or not, some of the rules will come out of these separate things. Okay. And with that, T ratio is statistically significant, but R square very high. That's really a big issue. And number 4 is that estimators and corresponding standard errors, SE, let me write standard error. So the standard errors become sensitive to small changes of data. So that is expected, right? It's a sample problem. So if the sample changes, suddenly you can have the problem go away. Okay, so one of the idea is large variances. So let's see if we can get some measure from this large variance idea, and we can use later that as a detection criteria. So earlier we saw how beta 2 hat is becoming 0 by 0, but then we are dealing with more concerned, as I said, about imperfect multicollinearity. So let's see that. Okay. So take, for example, variance of beta 2 hat in a 3-variable model. So what is that? Sigma square divided by sum over x2i square into 1 minus r23 square, and variance of beta 3 hat. So for the timing, we will not work with covariance. They will give me the same result. So that will be sigma square sum over x3i square into 1 minus r23 square. Okay, so let's talk about them. So obviously, so this is kind of first observation, that as R23 tends to 1, variance of beta 2 hat and variance of beta 3 hat will tend to infinity. And while I say that R23 tends to 1, what I'm talking about is the degree of linear association between these two. They are increasing. Okay. So now we are going to devise a measure from this R23. It is called variance inflation factor. What does it measure? It measures the speed with which the variance is increasing. Okay. More commonly known as VIF. It's a very famous measure in multicollinearity. So what does it measure? It measures the speed with which variances and covariances increase. Why am I writing covariance? Because in the expression of covariance also, in a 3-variable model, you will find R23. Okay, that's why I am saying this. Okay, so what is VIF? VIF is very simple. It is 1 by 1 minus R23 square. So this is what is VIF. So it shows how variance of an estimator is inflated in the presence of multicollinearity. So it shows how variance of an estimator is inflated in presence of multicollinearity, and in that term, or using the VIF, variance of beta 2 hat becomes sigma square divided by x2i square into VIF, and variance of beta 3 hat becomes similarly sigma square divided by sum over x3i square into VIF. Okay, so in a k variable expression, that can be extended quite easily, right? Okay. But before looking into the k variable expression, we'll make some comments on what changes variance. If you remember, we have made such comments also when we studied the basic two variable bivariate regression model, right? Okay. So you know that variance of beta j hat, in general, I can write this beta j hat, it depends on, so depends on, coming from this expression, number one, sigma square, obviously. Then comes the x component, so sum over xj square, and third, VIF. So that's how VIF plays its role. Okay. Also, let me just say that the inverse of VIF is called, the inverse of VIF is called tolerance. This is its name, it's tolerance. Okay. Which will, you can denote by TOL, though it is not standard really. All right. So before going into anything, just let me write the expression for k variable. Do you know what that be? So this will be variance of beta j hat will be simply sigma square divided by sum over xj square into VIF. So VIF remains the same, but we will include j because here there is 2 and 3, so R2, 3 only. But in a k variable model, that will change. Okay. And if you want to make the connection, just let me write this, where, just to clarify a bit more, VIFJ is basically 1 by 1 minus RJ square. Okay. All right. Let us now see in the diagram how they are related. And the diagram kind of approximate the exponential pattern of the whole thing. So R2, 3, and let's say variance of beta 2 hat. Okay. So basically it will go like this. Okay. It's sort of an exponential function. Okay. So from the other points that we studied as the practical consequences, we can devise, apart from obviously the variance inflation factor and its statement, we can devise something which will tell us that there is multicollinearity. So one easy signal, so I'll come to that again, but let me just say that one easy signal is that, as I said, that the T ratio, it will become insignificant through testing, but R square will be very high. So that can also be considered as one of the possible scenario of having multicollinearity. Okay. Okay. So with the knowledge of the VIF, let us go to the detection part, that is the diagnostic test. And as I just said, that multicollinearity is a sample specific problem. So because of that, I cannot really write, diagnostic test, Because then again, the tests that we have learned, they are based on multi-sample discussion or simple random sampling or repeated sampling. So that is not something which is related to the problem of multicollinearity. So we have detections here, and obviously those detections, if they do not involve testing of usual manner, what will they involve? They involve, okay, let me write it here, formal or informal rule of thumb. Formal or informal rule of thumb. Why formal or informal? You will see that in some rules you will have some regression ideas involved, and in some cases they are not. Okay. But first we must again clarify a very simple point, that when I'm detecting multicollinearity, the question is not of existence. No, that's not where we are searching. The question is not of existence, but of degree. Obviously, there will be some relationship between x1 and x2 when you are in economics, but that's not the problem. The problem is whether that is risky or not. Okay, so the rules. Number one, from the practical consequences, high R square, but few significant t values. This has a little bit of problem. The problem is, so let me just say it here. So the disadvantage that is associated with this rule is that here multicollinearity is harmful only when, and this is where the disadvantage starts, only when, the most important term is all, only when all of the influences of the x's on y cannot be disentangled. That is separated, basically. Disentangled means separated. So the problem is in this term, is in this part, only when all of the influences of the x's. So it's not that you are dealing with a k variable model and there is collinearity between 2 or 3. Okay. If all of the influences cannot be disentangled, then only it will work. But that is correct. Why? Because R square is an overall measure, right? So that's why this all is becomes a disadvantage. So let's go to rule 2. So what is rule 2? Obviously, based on VIF, we can always devise a rule that high pairwise correlations among x's, among the x's, that is regressors. But what is the problem here? The problem is about the idea of linear correlation. The problem is this: it is a sufficient condition, but not necessary. It is a sufficient condition, but not necessary. What does this mean? This means that if this occurs, okay, not necessary means multicollinearity. So if you have high pairwise correlation, then okay, let me take an example that will make you the things more clear. Okay. Let's say we have a model which is yi equal to beta 1 plus beta 2 x2i plus beta 3 x3i plus beta 4 x4i plus ey. Let's say it is like this. Okay, with. So you have to assume some multicollinearity. So x4i equal to lambda 1 x2i plus, or to match the notations, lambda 2 x2i and lambda 3 x3i. Okay, this is the scenario. And obviously not both 0. So that's natural. So that means r square 4.23 equal to 1. Right? The regression of that result will be 1 because x4 can be completely explained by 2 and 3, and within 2 and x2 and x3 they will be independent. So r square of that regression will be 1. Right? Complete explanation. Now r square 4.23, this is by formula, this is r42 square plus r43 square minus 2r42 r43 r23 divided by 1 minus r23 square. Okay. Now, for us, we have assumed multicollinearity here, and that gave us r square 4.23 equal to 1. So this expression, given multicollinearity, this expression is 1. Now what is the problem? The problem is that if r42 equal to 0.5, r43 equal to 0.5, and r23 equal to minus 0.5, then also r square 4.23 equal to 1. But then pairwise correlations are not high at all. They are not high. So that means what? That means for a large model, this idea of detection is not really good. But yes, with a smaller model, this works fine. Just go through the example and try to understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that given multicollinearity, r square is 1, but this r square can become 1 even when the pairwise correlations are not very high. That means that when I'm saying that high pairwise correlation is a detection method for multicollinearity, that doesn't work in this way, that even when multicollinearity is there may not be high pairwise correlation. Okay. So that's why I'm saying that when you have a smaller size, smaller model, then it is fine. So then we can simply add another detection, another type of correlation that will make our third. That is examination of partial correlations. Examination of partial correlations. And what is the rule here? Here also that the rule is simply okay. High value implies multicollinearity. What is the disadvantage? The disadvantage is high values, or not high values, let me write in general so that you can remember this as a learning in statistics. A given partial correlation is compatible with several multicollinearity patterns. So I'm just written multi here. So a given partial correlation is compatible with multiple or different multicollinearity patterns. So that will that is giving us the kind of problem that is which is similar to this one. But obviously, taking the correlations both partial, multiple, and pairwise, that's a very good idea actually. When you are constructing a model, that's quite a good idea basically. Although you should do that keeping in mind the disadvantages or the necessary sufficient nature of inferences that are involved. Otherwise, you will do the wrong things. Okay. A more trusted method is this one, which we called auxiliary regression. See, you can suspect multicollinearity, but you cannot really perfectly say that there is it. So what we do is you simply regress the variables within them with those variables among which you suspect multicollinearity. So that's more a trusted method. So what is the idea? The idea is that regress xi on remaining x's, that means x variables, and compute corresponding R squares, denoted as R square I. This regression is called the auxiliary regression, which helps you to detect things. And then the road is simple. Define f equal to R square, so xi on, or rather, yeah, xi on x2, x3, xk, divided by the degrees of freedom, so k minus 2, and then the 1 minus R square xi, x2, x3 xk divided by n minus k plus 1. As you can see, this f comes from the similar way we have defined f earlier also. So this will follow under null that f distribution with k minus 2 and n minus k plus 1 degrees of freedom. And The rest is known, right? The rest is that f has to be more than the observed value, has to be more than the tabulated value, and then you reject the null, that there is no relation, and so on and so forth. Okay. But this is difficult. So what we actually do is this rule of thumb, which is actually handy. And this rule of thumb is known as Klein's rule of thumb. Okay, so Klein's rule of thumb. What is the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is this. If the R square, ox, that is R square obtained from the auxiliary regression, if the R square is greater than R square overall, then suspect, then there is multicollinearity. Okay. So what is the Klein's rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is very simple. You regress and then you get the R square, and then you check whether that R square is more than the overall R square, which is very unusual, right? If that becomes true, then you have a serious problem of multicollinearity. As I already said, that the question of multicollinearity is one of degree. Okay, so now we'll move on to the fifth one, which is about the eigenvalues and condition index. So the rest, so in eigenvalues and condition index, then we are going to use the VIF, but that is in the next session. Okay.